Tonight is the yard site of the Rebbe's emissaries to Mumbai, Rabbi Gavriel and Rebbetzin Rivki Holzberg. Tonight's the 16th yard site since they passed away. Tragically, they were killed by terrorists. And this week, yeah, have a seat, Yona. Just pull over a chair. They were killed by terrorists, and not only they killed, but all their guests were killed in the Chabad Center in Mumbai. The only one who survived was their son Moshe Holzberg. The baby, the one who was who miraculously escaped from the terrorists. And I remember then when I was in New York then, because that was there was then the conference of the Chabad rabbis in New York. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to. I feel like this inspiration. I feel like this connection to these souls who were tragically killed, and I don't want their light to be extinguished. I want to do something so their light should continue. Off your hamburgers? Sure. There's chicken and so I remember having that inspiration.
Chicken or hamburger? And then there's hamburger there.
There's two different flavors.
And there's some sauces.
So I remember thinking, like, to myself that I want to keep this inspiration. I didn't want the inspiration to go away. Because what happens often is that events happen to us in our lives, we get very inspired, we get very touched, and then the inspiration, it may last a day, it may last, in a good situation, last a week or two, and you have this inspiration, you feel when you have the inspiration like you really can be patient with people, you're patient with your children, you can really, like, all of a sudden begin to pray the way you want to, you suddenly feel like I could live with faith, suddenly feel like you could just walk around and you could repair relationships you have at home. You feel like you could really do it. You could get it. You had this inspiration, but the problem is that this inspiration that lasts for a week or two often goes away. And when it goes away, whether it was because you were recovered from a tragic car accident, or it was because you were by a seminar where you learned something inspiring, or because it was a special day, it was Yom Kippur, and you were just touched. What happens is that after you get inspired and the inspiration dies or dims, you suddenly, when you find yourself back to square one, you don't want to try to get inspired again because you feel like you're not able to. You lose faith in yourself. You lose the ability to look in yourself and say that I can, because you see how you've fallen. And the question is, what can we do when we're in that state of inspiration, a state of I can, I will, I'm going to go all the way? What can we do to hold on to that so that it doesn't go away, so that we can keep that? So the good news is that there is an answer. It's for this very common phenomena. And we're going to learn the answer to this from this week's Torah portion, where we'll read about Avraham and Yitzchak. Or more accurately, read more about Isaac, the second of our patriarchs. The Torah tells us that Yitzchak lived for 180 years. He must have had a lot of things that happened to him in his long life. But the Torah only hones in on one of his experiences, and it's like the only thing we know about him. What do we know about Yitzchak? We know that his father Abraham dug wells. He dug 3 wells. We know the Philistines came and they plugged up those wells after his father passed away. So then Yitzchak redigs those wells. Then he goes, moves somewhere else, digs 2 more wells. The Philistines argue with him. They say, it's our water. He doesn't give up. He keeps on digging, digs 2 more wells, and then he digs the 7th well. And the question is, it doesn't seem to be such an honorable thing. You know who our patriarch Isaac was? He was somebody who dug wells. I mean, like, what's the big deal? I mean, it's a nice thing to dig wells for people so they can have water. People are traveling by, need some water, but It sounds like there's something more to the story. Yes, Rabbi.
Is there some special skill to finding water under the ground? We call it divining or something. Some
The rods?
ways of doing it, the divining rods and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but even if there is a special skill, is that what we need our patriarch? Let me say it this way: the word Torah is not a history book. The word Torah means instruction. It means if we want to know the map to our lives, we look into the Torah. And our patriarchs aren't just people; they are roots from where we come from. So we want to know more about ourselves and where we are, where we come from, where we're going. Look at the stories of the Torah. So let's look at the first of our patriarchs, and the order of our patriarchs is also mapped to our life. Abraham was first, Abram was first, then there's Yitzchak, then there's Isaac, then there's Yaakov, then there's Jacob. So too in our lives, in anything you want to do in life, you have to first approach it with an Abraham stance, and then you could add to that the Isaac stance, the Isaac approach, and only if you do things that way, only if you add the Yitzchak approach, as we'll see, can things be enduring, can things be lasting, can things stay with you, can the things you want to stay with you, stay with you. So, let's go to Avram for a second. What was Avram's life about? We know what Avram's life is about. Avram was the first one to have a Chabad center. Not officially a Chabad center, but think about it, that's what he did. He had a tent in the middle of the desert, open with four doors of his tent. Anyone come from any direction was welcome to come to his tent. He fed everybody, gave everyone food, gave everyone drink. It's actually interesting, the Hebrew words, Vayita Eshel, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, the words the Torah uses to describe the hotel that he built is the numerical equivalent to the words Beis Chabad, Chabad Center. And he didn't just, what did he do? I mean, if you go to a Magic Mountain, or Disney, I haven't been to Disneyland yet, but I would love to. Anyways, you go to Disney, you go to Magic Mountain, you stand on line over there, and so they sell water. And you're going to buy that water if you're there in August. You're there, and the charge for the water is 7 times the charge for water in Walgreens, because you need the water more when you're stuck over there in the line, and there's 4 hours ahead of you in the line. So it costs more. You go to a hotel, you buy the water, it costs more. Just like the cost of gasoline changes based upon the location, the cost of water changes. So Avram's providing not just water, he's providing these sumptuous feasts, these Thanksgiving dinners, every night in the middle of the desert. So he really was able to charge an exorbitant amount rightfully so, for all that he gave the passerby. But instead of charging, he didn't charge anything, he just gave it out. Just, come on, eat, drink, enjoy. But it wasn't just to give food to people. It wasn't just about the food. Avram Avinu wasn't about just giving kindness to them. He had an agenda. He had a purpose in what he was trying to do. He was trying to spread Hashem's name to people. People came to eat and drink, and Avram said to them, I want you now to acknowledge and thank the one by whose word the world came to be. Thank Hashem. Some of his guests appreciated it, some of them didn't understand what he was talking about, but Avram explained lovingly the way that our father Avram can. We could only imagine how he spoke to people. Avram Avinu brought his faith in Hashem into the hearts of people. He brought his love to people. The way he did things was with love. It wasn't just, Avram was called Avram Ohavi, Avram the one who loves me, God says. Avram, there's love for God, and that's what the Torah says, Echad Haya Avram, he was one. He was one means that he was the only one that was doing what he was doing. He's called the Ivri. The Ivri means the one on one side. Ivri means the one on one side because the whole world was against him. He was the only one doing what he was doing, and the whole world was against him. And yet, his faith in Hashem was contagious. His faith in Hashem reached thousands of people, and tens of thousands of people. He brought people to believe in God. How did he do? What was his method? What was his gimmick? You know what George Burns said? Allah Shalom. George Burns said, there's one trick to great acting. That's sincerity. If you can fake that, you got it made. Avram Avinu was sincerely interested in everyone that he met, and he sincerely wanted to give them the greatest gift in the world, which is that there's a God in the world, that faith is real. That's what Avram Avinu did. So that's why he dug wells. Digging wells is also metaphorical. He tried to find the diamonds in people's hearts. With his love, with his warmth, with his kindness, He rejuvenated people. He brought them out of their shells, out of their dreary worries and anxiety, and he made them believe in God, believe that they're not walking by themselves, that someone's guiding them, someone's holding their hand. He's very successful. So in Avram's efforts with love, he did succeed. However, the Torah says that when he dug those wells, the Philistines later came and they plugged up the wells. And the Zohar says that once those wells were plugged up, all the people he inspired left. And then his son Yitzchak redug the wells. Then everyone began to know again about Hashem. Everyone forgot about God when they plugged up the wells. And then when his son Yitzchak redug the wells, then he started believing in God again. What was the difference between Avram and Yitzchak? What did Yitzchak add to Avram? So let's first understand Avram a little bit more. I have a friend who runs a Chabad center in Antwerp, Rabbi Shabtai Savititsky. And he said that there's two guys in his Chabad center. One of them came, he met him in an elevator before Yom Kippur, he invited him to his synagogue, and this guy became religious and he built a beautiful Jewish family. And he asked this guy one day, he said, tell me, what was it that you saw in our Chabad center, in your experiences? What was it one of my talks on Shabbat? Was it something we were singing songs together? What was the thing that lit your soul, that made you want to embrace this kind of lifestyle? So the man's like, it was between the fish and the meat. What? The fish? He said, he didn't mean the food. He meant, I came to your house. It was so warm, so inviting. It wasn't the songs, it wasn't the information that you shared, although that was also really good. And it wasn't the food, which was also really good. It was just the warmth and the friendship that your family gave me. I just felt that's what touched me. Conversely, there's another guy in this Chabad center who was always asking questions, good questions, always asking questions, always there by every class. And the rabbi always invites him to come to his house for Shabbat, and he never ever comes. Someone once saw the rabbi inviting him and him refusing again and again. He's telling me, I just want to know, why don't you ever come to the rabbi's house? He says, I don't want him to catch me. I know if I come to his house, the warmth, the flavor, it's gonna. I want to remain with my own separate identity. I don't want him to get me. I know with that environment, he's gonna get me. Rabbi Chaim Potak, most similar thing he said. He said he was never came to the Rebbe. He came to the Rebbe, but he never came to the Rebbe for private audience. He said, why did you come to the Rebbe for private audience? He said, I'm afraid he was going to get me. I was going to get changed. There was an Israeli general. His last name is Bur, and he spoke on Israeli radio. Very funny. He spoke also about his visit to the Rebbe. He said, I visited the Rebbe. But it didn't affect me. You know why? I decided I need bur, then you share a bur. I am a bur, I'll remain a bur. You could have that. You could have that kind of resistance. But when someone believes in Hashem, they're feeling the wellspring of our father Abraham. That's the wellspring that he brought to the world. That's the wells that he dug. The wells of faith in Hashem. That's why it says Avram was one. His whole essence was the oneness of God. His whole essence was believing and sharing the faith in Hashem. And he was doing amazing things. However, when Avram brought people to Hashem, there was still something missing. Because everyone was so excited about him, about what he was sharing with them. It wasn't something that they themselves internalized. They themselves had within themselves. It was all about what Avram was saying. What did Avram say today? What did Avram do today? It wasn't something they had within themselves. In the Zohar talks about two kinds of inspiration. There's an inspiration from above to below, inspiration from below to above. I'll give a simple analogy. You have two kinds of teachers. You have one kind of teacher who's brilliant, knows a lot of information. They could talk to you about any subject, and you'll be mesmerized. Wow, what an amazing teacher. But the teacher doesn't focus on you and help you develop skills for problem solving. They're just going to tell you a lot of information. But then you have another kind of teacher who really wants to relate to you and get you to think. Thank God I was privileged to have more than one teacher like this. Rabbi Fishman, may he live and be well. Rabbi Fishman made us think. He made us ask questions. He was really into us. He wasn't just into teaching us Torah. He was into us, that we should get into it. He got the whole class discussing stuff with enthusiasm. We're trying to figure out, why did Abaye say this, or why did Rava say that, and couldn't Rava have said this? And we were little kids, we were asking silly questions. But he knew that us asking silly questions made us own information, made us our Torah. It wasn't just his Torah. There was a great Torah giant named Rabbi Meir Shapiro. Rabbi Meir Shapiro, he led a yeshiva called the Chachmei Lublin. He was the one he was the founder of the Daf Yomi program, where people study a page of Talmud a day. So when he made his yeshiva was a very unique yeshiva. To get into his yeshiva, he had to memorize 300 pages, 300 folio of Talmud, just to get in. So, and his yeshiva, they had the inauguration ceremony, and they had a little sign back of him at the inauguration ceremony. What did the sign say? There are many lines that you would use at such a ceremony. But he had an unusual one. He says, "L'chu vanim, come my children, yirat Hashem amadchem. I will teach you fear of Hashem. Come my children, I'll teach you fear of Hashem." Someone asked him, "What's this? What is this?" He said to them, a lot of people, when they make a yeshiva, they make a house of learning, they want people to learn Torah there in the yeshiva. That's not my goal. My goal is l'chu vanim. Let my children go. When they leave the yeshiva, then I want them to also retain their reverence for Hashem. A friend of mine was shared about how he visited another friend of his who was running the yeshiva. He's running this yeshiva, and my friend asked him, "So tell me, what's your goal in this yeshiva? What's your 5-year dream and whatever?" So the guy says, he's a principal of his school. He says, "I couldn't care less what happens here." Whoa, maybe you're in the wrong field, man. You don't care about what's happening here. You're trying to make this school of learning. What do you mean you don't care? He says, "I don't care what happens here. I think about my students, where they're going to be in 10 years and get out of this place, and they get out of this center of learning. What are they going to be?" And this is what the Zohar means when it says there's two kinds of inspiration. The inspiration from above to below, inspiration from below to above. Abraham Avram was inspiration from above to below. He shared faith in Hashem. He shared love. He shared warmth. But it was all about the environment that he shared. When that environment dissipated, the inspiration went away also. He found diamonds in people. But when the water was plugged up again, it went away. And this is the same as in ourselves. We have moments where we feel very inspired, very excited. We have to have the second part of our lives. That's the Yitzchak part. What's the Yitzchak part about? Let's give a simple example that we all can relate to immediately. We know that when God gave us the Torah, before we got the Torah, we crossed the Reed Sea. We saw the sea split. We came to Mount Sinai, and God gave us the Torah. What does it say when God gave us the Torah? It says the birds didn't chirp, the cows didn't bellow, the angels didn't sing. The whole world was silent when God said the words, "I am the Lord your God, took you out of Egypt." We all heard the words coming from all directions. We all felt it. We all were there. We all saw things. We saw the thunder. The Torah says we saw thunder. We heard lightning, whatever that means. We were experiencing something otherworldly. Okay. And what happened 7 weeks later? 7 weeks later was the sin of the golden calf. We were coming from a state of absolute clarity and sincerity and purity, and all of a sudden there's a golden calf. Why was there a golden calf a few weeks later? Simple. It's because all this inspiration came from above to below. It wasn't something that was within us. There was a great Hasidic master. His name was Shlomo Karliner. He said a very fascinating line. It says in King Solomon says, "Do not say that the first days were better than the present, because it's not with wisdom that you ask such a question. Do not say that the first days, Al Toimar, don't say that the Hayam Re'eshayim Tev Me'el, that the first days were better than today's days, because it's not with wisdom that you ask this." What does that mean? Sometimes you look at your life and you look at a certain event in your life, you say, this was a great event. I remember when I was 15 years old and I was idealistic and I meant it and I was sincere and I knew and I was there with a full heart, and I remember that. And then it goes away. You say, I wish I had that back. That was good. Why'd it go away? So said Shlomo Karliner, don't say that was better. Don't say, it seems it was better. He says, no. People wonder, why is it that God gives us inspiration and the inspiration goes away? My great uncle, he was sent by the Rabbi to Melbourne, Australia. Actually, the previous Rebbe sent him there, and he previously passed away. And his father wrote to the Rebbe, to our Rebbe, he said, he's in Melbourne. He's away from all of his friends. He wished he could be in New York. And the Rebbe said, if my father-in-law sent you there, and he knew he was going to pass away, and therefore he meant that you should stay there. And then the Rebbe wrote how a general knows each of his troops where they need to be, and if he put you there, there's something you need to do there. But he added something which was very fascinating. He said, before you came to Melbourne, which at that time when they came there was a spiritual wasteland. There's nothing going on there spiritually when he went there, originally in the early 50s. But they came from Samarkand. Samarkand was a city in Russia which was a little shtetl, a Hasidic little town with a lot of love and faith in Hashem. A little town, when it was Shabbos in the town, the whole town was Shabbos. When someone made a new wine, they invited their friends, "Come, let's have the wine. I just discovered a new wine." It was a warm. People prayed for hours and hours together. It was different. So the Rebbe said the reason you were there was to give you strength when you're going to go for when you would have to depart to go to Melbourne. It wasn't that you think, says King Solomon, the days before in Samarkand were better. No. The only reason God gave you those days was because He wants you to achieve something in the future days. And that's why He says it was not with wisdom. It wasn't your own wisdom that created that experience. The reason Hashem gives us inspiration is because Hashem wants us to know how high we can jump. When He wants us to know the map of where we need to get to. When you have that inspiration, you have that clarity, that's where I want to go. But now, you have to bring it into yourself. I mentioned before how I was inspired, unfortunately, from the tragic passing of the Rebbe's emissaries to Mumbai when they were killed by the terrorists. So I did something which was helpful. What did I do? I made a decision, a very small decision. It was a very small decision. The decision was I'm going to share in those days. I don't know if they're. I didn't know what podcasts really were then. I didn't have a podcast, but I shared a robocall. I still have it on robocall. I'm going to do a robocall of a minute of Torah every day.
Ahead of your time.
What?
Ahead of your time. You were ahead of the time.
Yeah. So I shared a robocalls were in vogue then, 16 years ago. People did robocalls.
I want to tell you I got a robocall today when I was involved in a life-changing transaction. And I was doing a life-changing transaction, and the phone rings, and while I was doing that transaction, I was hearing the robocall.
Cool. Amazing. So anyway, so robocalls, I every day, it's easy. I'll just share a minute of Torah every day. That's what I could do practically. It's small. It won't take up my whole day. I want to do something to keep their light shining in the world. And Baruch Hashem, I'm doing it for 16 years every day. And I have a podcast, and I could tell you that millions of minutes of Torah, it's called 1 minute of Torah, but millions of minutes of Torah have been studied and heard, and of course other minutes of Torah, because I did something which was Isaac-based. Isaac-based means I brought it into myself as inspiration. I was excited. I want to do something for them. But I thought of a very small, tiny thing that I could do that was bite-sized, that was meaningful but bite-sized, and I brought it to myself.
And I got to thank you, Rabbi. That gets me through every day. I look for it. And it wakes me up a lot of time. And I was sitting, I go like this. It's here. It's time to get up.
All right. Baruch Hashem, thank you. So anyways, think about the inspiration of Mount Sinai, right? It's inspiring, but then it goes away. It goes away because inspiration is coming from somewhere else. The key to keeping inspiration is to bring it into yourself. It wasn't with your wisdom, God says, you achieved this. That's why it goes away. Sha'alta, you borrowed it. It was a borrowed experience that God gave you. It was necessary for you to know how high you could jump, but it wasn't meant to stay. It was meant to be there, so you could bring it and do it on your own, so it could be part of you. Like the second kind of teacher I mentioned before, not the teacher who just tells you a lot of information. The teacher who shows you how to develop your own skills. And so too in our lives, you could have a diet. You decide, I'm going to lose weight, and you're inspired. You really mean it, and you do mean it. But unless you figure out a way that's going to work for your lifestyle, no diet in the world can help you lose weight unless you do one thing: control your appetite. So if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have the tools to do that, which is if certain things you like to eat, you have to find the right diet that will work for you, and then you're able to do it, because that's a fit you. So there was a rabbi in Eretz Yisrael. He's the head of the Jewish court there, Rabbi Tuvia Weiss. And he visited the friend I mentioned before, Rabbi Shatei Savatitsky, right after the Rebbe's burial, and he's like, calls Rabbi Savatitsky, he said, listen, got to get all the Chabad rabbis together, you have to appoint a new Rebbe. Get a new Rebbe together, because you really appreciate what Chabad was doing around the world, the thousands of centers, and you really appreciate it. He said, you got to do something, got to appoint a new Rebbe, because it's just going to all stop. So Rabbi Savatitsky is like, I don't think it's going to stop, but you got to listen to me. Anyways, 4 years later, unfortunately, this same Rabbi Weiss, his granddaughter passed away, and he visited Antwerp. He calls over Rabbi Savatitsky. Rabbi Savatitsky came there to comfort the mourner, the parents of this young girl who passed away, and he says, "I need next time you go to New York, I want you to convey, when you go to the Rebbe's gravesite, convey my apology. Apology? What'd you do wrong?" He said, "I didn't understand how it's possible that the inspiration could continue after Gimel Tammuz. I didn't know how it could continue. But I see, and we can see this, we look at the numbers, the number of people that went on the Rebbe's mission before are not even a fraction of the numbers of people going out now to do the Rebbe's mission around the world. I'm going, God willing, to New York this weekend. I'm going to have at the major banquet event. It's a great event. They have a series of lectures. They teach you about how to do fundraising, how to give classes, all the things you need to do to be able to open a Chabad center, how to be like Avraham, our father. So, and then the conclusion of it is they have a banquet. And the banquet is they have all the Chabad rabbis with many of their supporters come. 6,500 people, get together for dinner. It's a major.
At a hotel, because Chabad is like.
Yeah, they do it somewhere in Jersey. I don't know. Anyway, so it's a very powerful thing. But they have the roll call. In the roll call, they say everyone who became an emissary of the Rebbe after Gimel Tammuz, after Rebbe's burial, after that, and there are way more people that started 30 years ago than people who started before that, because it's growing and growing and growing. And why is it growing? It's growing, of course, because of the Rebbe's presence, because the Rebbe's Dav Melech Shor Chai V'Kayim, King David, the King of Israel, is alive and well. The Rebbe's blessings and inspiration and presence is growing. But more than that, it's also growing because of the method of Yitzchak. Yitzchak teaches us in our lives that we can't just go with inspiration only. We have to also find bite-sized ways of taking that inspiration and bringing it within ourselves. That's the message always telling us with the digging of the wells. Digging of the wells, Avram dug wells too, but Yitzchak's digging of wells was different. Yitzchak's digging of wells means to dig in ourselves and find how can I relate to that experience. You find a lot of people who make great strides in their Judaism. They start praying and they're so excited about it and they love it, and then they lose it. They lose it. They don't know why they lost it. They lost it because, like a child learning how to walk. Child's learning how to walk, makes the first step. You call up his mother. You call up his look. And then he falls down, and you feel like, oh my gosh, if you're falling. When the kid makes the first step, it's time to celebrate. But what's a celebration? Celebration is not that he knows how to walk. He's learning how to walk. Same as with ourselves. We make steps and we fall down. That's how Hashem built us. He didn't build us in a way that we shouldn't fall down. He built us in a way that we should stay and grow, and we fall down, and that's part of our learning. It's part of our learning how to walk. When the kid makes the first step, every kid can't all of a sudden know how to walk the first step. He makes a step and he falls. So we can't get distracted by our falling. We fall again and again, but that's part of how we learn how to walk. So bottom line is, in our prayers we say, God of Avraham, God of Yitzchak, God of Yaakov. Why don't we say God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Why not say it in one sentence? Why does it God of Avraham, God of Yitzchak, and Yaakov? The reason we say this is because you have to make God your God. There's the God of Leon, the God of Yonah, the God of Yosef ben Yamin. Say Malta for Yosef ben Yamin getting his Jewish name today. Baruch Hashem. Yosef ben Yamin. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, Malta to Rabbi Yisrael, Malta Rabbi Baruch. We got to make it my own God. If we get to our own experience in a bite-sized, small little way, where it's just small little step that we're embarrassed of. Like, it's nothing. But that's how you get stuff done. That's a Yitzchak. Bring it into ourselves. L'chaim v'bracha. Fortunately, we just lost another emissary of the Rebbe, and again at this time of the year. We're to make a good small decision that his light should continue in the world until Hashem brings his soul back to a body. The resurrection of the dead, the coming Mashiach Tzidkenu. Take me a mamish. Something small to all take on to bring the light of Tzvi ben Alexander Akayin, in the world until we see him again. Chaim v'racha.
Rabbi, can I ask you one question?
Sure.